What's going on, everyone? Special episode today. I sit down with Steve Burnett. So, if you don't know who Steve Burnett is, he is a painting business guru. He is the head of DYB Coach, which is a collective community of hungry painting business owners, all coming together and learning the DYB system. I highly endorse Steve. I actually learned a lot from Steve. The hiring, some of the marketing, really just how they create culture. I mean, these were some foundational things that I learned and put into play in my own business. So for me, this was really cool to sit across from Steve and kind of just chat a little bit about his story, what DYB is really about, and his heart for wanting to help others succeed. Everything that I resonate with. So I think you're going to really, really like this. Now, before I get off this intro here, I want to let you know that in the description, there is a link to join DYB. I highly suggest you join it because it's only $1. So Steve's that committed to just showing you how cool it is. Just for $1, you can join his community. So there's a link below this podcast to join. And really what you're going to get is access to all the modules of really just things that you probably haven't even learned because they are part of his unique strategy for growing your business. So Steve is a successful painting business owner that wound up selling his business. So a lot of information here, wealth of knowledge. So I highly suggest you join DYB and you get your notepad out for Steve and I's interview. Thank you so much for listening to the Contractor Secrets Podcast. Contractors all over the world are wanting more time, more freedom, more impact. The way we do this is through implementing systems, processes, standards. Welcome to the Contractor Secrets Podcast. Here we hit business strategy, coaching, mindset, motivation, the tools you need for success. So strap in, listen up, and get ready to grow on the Contractor Secrets Podcast. Let me get to the group. All right, we are live, and I am going to make sure we can pin this at the top of the group here. Usually takes a second to wake up. Here we go. Pinning it to the features here. Awesome. And what I'm going to do also before we get started is I have a link here that I'm going to be posting in the comments. And that link is after I'm sure we hear from Steve here, you may want to learn a little bit more about what Steve offers and how his business operates. So I put a link in the comments for you if you want to get started with that. So welcome, everyone. I'm here with Steve Burnett of DYB. I wrestled him in. This was pretty cool because, Steve, I've been a big fan of yours for a long time. I actually was part of your program, learned a tremendous amount from what you do. And it's interesting, man. You're pretty low key, I will say. I mean, and I think you know that as well. And it's cool because what you teach is organic reach, be honest with you. And then most of the people that find you, including myself, was through an organic channel. So that's just really neat. But anyway, getting the word out about you, I sing your praises. I think what you've built is great. I'm friends with a lot of people that are in your program. So the first thing I want to do is kind of just give you the floor. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what is DYB, and why should a painting contractor know about it?
Ooh, okay. Well, first, thank you for that intro. I appreciate that. And it's an honor. You're right. I am low key. In fact, this is the first podcast I've done ever. And first video or public presentation I've done. I retired from public speaking about 4 years ago because naturally I'm an introvert. I love to research. And so I don't care for the limelight. However, happy to do this for you. We got back in just in time after camping long weekend. So
thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Story. So originally started off in Michigan. I am a high school dropout, about 15 years old, started learning the trade of painting from my father. And at 17, I had everything figured out, just like all teenage boys do. I knew it all and moved out on my own. And then at 19, I thought that there might be a better way to build a business, So I started my first painting company in Michigan at 19 and got going. Got married, had a couple kids, and 9 years later, things were really struggling. This was, about 04? So it was after 9/11. The big three in Michigan got hit really hard. We had about 8 painters at the time, and I forget how old I was, 25, 27-ish. And things were really tough. But then I heard about a hurricane that came through and wiped out a town in Florida called Punta Gorda. Never been to Florida before. But wife and I decided, hey, why don't I take some guys down and help out? So we loaded up a van and drove all the way down. We arrived in Punta Gorda, Florida at about 11 a.m. Funny name. Big Point, I believe it
Yeah.
means.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
Uh,
point.
Fat Point. Yeah, yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Okay, muy bien.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Landed about 11 a.m. And I remember 'cause it was hot. It was so hot out, coming down from
Yeah.
Michigan.
The
When we drove
humidity.
out December 30th, it was 4 degrees and 8 inches of snow. And when we landed, it was like 80 degrees. And we were just like sweating 11 a.m. and just got to work. But after being there for a few days, I'd never been to Florida before. I got there and I looked around, I'm like, wow, palm trees. And we were,
Yeah.
the beach was just down the road. And
Yeah.
so I called my wife at the time and I said, hey, it's awesome down here. I said, the economy's kind of in the dumps in Michigan right now. Why, I think we should move down here and start over. And she said, well, I think that's a great idea. And I said, you do? She
Nice.
never, she goes, yes, I think you should.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And so shortly after she split, she found somebody else. She split. However, I stayed and I got my two little kids. They were Steven and Nadia were 5 and 7 at the time. And it was cool because there was plenty of hurricane work.
Yeah.
So I got them plugged in school, found a place for us to stay. And here I am in paradise. Well, didn't plan for this, but 6 months later, because a lot of other guys heard about the opportunity to help out around here, everything got taken care of, rebuilt, and painted after being wiped out in 6 months. So 6 months later, all the painting was done.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Quick.
I thought, oh my goodness, here I am committed to Florida. We're 1,250 miles away from all friends and family, back up
Wow.
in Michigan, all contacts. And I thought, well, I can't give up. I've got these two little kids. A
Yeah.
lot of people say, well, Steve, that's amazing. And I said, well, I had a couple little kids. If I didn't have them, I don't know. I might end up in a bar like everybody else.
Wow.
So, but I did. I had them. And so I went and started going door to door. Just knock, knock, knock. Can I paint your house? No. Knock, knock. Can I paint your house? Get
Wow.
off my lawn. Can I paint your house? You want some water? Yes, please. Thank you. Because in
Yeah.
July and August, it was hot.
Yeah.
And sure enough, finally, the Bennetts were the first one that said yes.
Really?
And I remember going in, they had great big headshots on their wall, like corporate headshots from the 80s. I'm like, oh, I got tired. Yeah, yeah. So I went in there and I said, pardon me, what, headshots, what are they from? They're like, well, we're retired sales executives. I'm like, nice.
Yeah. They can appreciate your
Yes.
hustle. That's
Yes. And they were my in to that neighborhood. And so they introduced me to some others. And then I just kept going door to door. I'd paint one door to door, find a helper, and just kept going and grinding it out. Like that. But about that time, just as a quick aside here, I was at my wit's end, kind of just before that, or right around then. And I remember this story of King Solomon, and I didn't have anywhere else to go. My father had passed away and my mother wasn't doing well. And I really had nobody else to lean on. So I started asking for wisdom. I started praying for wisdom. I'm like, well, I don't know. Now I'm still waiting for the wisdom to come. Okay.
gotcha.
But what did come was an insatiable desire to read and to learn. Now, I've got to qualify this. I've never read a book before this time. In fact, I'm a high school dropout. The reason
Yeah.
is because I just kept failing everything. They'd pass me along. But so I just started reading and pounding through books. And that's even still today. It's my greatest hobby is to research and to synthesize all of the actionables and to streamline them into systems. So I just started reading books and implementing, going door to door, knocking, going to seminars. And that was how, I acquired some mentors later on. And then couple years later, we get going a couple years later. And then my daughter, Nadia, she's 8 or so about the time. And she comes up to me, she says, Daddy, I think that you should find a new wife. And I said, really? So why is that? She says, well, we've been talking, her and her brother, who was 2 years older than her. She says, we don't want you to be lonely. And I said, well, honey, I don't know if you noticed, I haven't had time to be lonely.
Yeah.
I'm kind of busy learning how to braid your hair through YouTube videos and make dinner with hamburger helper. Because I didn't know how to cook. I've always worked. And so tried online dating, and Match.com was really bad. And then eHarmony is supposed to find me. It's my perfect match. And well, they didn't find anybody. So I gave up paying for those services, and I didn't know how else I was going to find somebody, or even if I should. I was pretty busy. But then an ad came across on Facebook back when Facebook used to run ads on the side for freechristiandating.com. And so I said, well, let's give it a shot. It's free, and she might be a Christian. And so I did. And sure enough, long story short, April and I connected, and on October 1st of 2008, and then by April 3rd of 2009, two became one. So
Wow.
4-3, two became one. We got married, within 6 months of first contact online. And then that's the real secret sauce. Okay.
Yeah.
So that part's not in the book, but I hit the wife lottery, like big
Yeah.
time. So
I love that. I've heard you say that a lot. I'm like, I love that.
it's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. Not only is she awesome and she's smart, but she's encouraging.
Yeah.
Every day she's like, "You've got this. You can do it."
Yeah.
And she's given me that reputation to live up to, and encouragement all the way. Plus, she's brilliant and beautiful, and just the whole complete package
Yeah.
for me. So
Yeah.
very grateful for her. And then once April got on, we really took off, and that's the rest of the story is kind of in the book of all the technical steps or whatnot.
Sure.
And once Burnett Painting blew up, we did a lot of unique things. We call them ABAs. In the system, it's step 6 ads that look like anything but advertising. And word about those got around. I think it was my Hulk Hogan commercial that really tipped. And
Tell me about that. What is the Hulk Hogan? I haven't heard that. What is that?
So I would do these. They're called remarkable presentations. I call them remarkable because Seth Godin says, if the marketplace isn't talking about you, it's because you're boring, and you're boring on purpose because it's safe.
Hmm.
Now, I was sitting at my desk. I had a couple crews on the field, and that felt like a punch in the gut because the marketplace wasn't really talking about us. Now, it doesn't mean you're bad. What it meant was we were professional. We were doing everything we were supposed to do. I never pushed any of the lines. I never took any risk or chances. I just did everything professionally. But after I read that quote from Seth Godin, the gloves were off.
Bets are off. Yeah.
It's on like Donkey Kong. Yes. And in fact, so the definition to remarkable that Seth Godin says is that others remark about you, right? So if you just do a professional service, that's expected. But in the marketing or in services, if you exceed expectations, they'll tell your neighbors about you. If you're networking, if you exceed expectations, they'll laugh and entertain them. They'll remember you and tell others about you. So the first thing I did was I went to a Venice Chamber event. I had just joined the Venice Chamber. This was probably 2011. And I was nervous as could be. We're at a country club gathering, and there are about 90 of us in there. And as they start the microphone going around for the chamber lunch, everybody's introducing themselves and standing up, and everybody's giving the same. And this is no criticism to them because this used to be me too. And they can stand up and they give the same want, right?
Yeah, this is what I do. This is who I am, right?
Yeah. And it's the same thing. So 90 people, right? Half of them are like, and rightly so, because it's everybody was safe, right? So I had this idea, but I talked myself out of it. However, and this is where it all started. One of my competitors was there. And I went, now I've got to do it, because they stood up and did the want, and they did a nice job, right? Very professional, very safe. So I had, I think it was a flip cam back then with me just in case, and I took it and I recognized a guy from the pest control company a couple tables down, and I tossed it over to him. I said, hey, capture this just in case it works. He goes, what? I said, just record it just in case it works. So I stood up, and here I am in front of 90 professionals. Most of them are not, 90 small businesses. Most of them professionals, suits and ties. And here I am, this painting contractor. And, I had black slacks on and polo shirt, but surely wasn't tied up like the rest of them. And I stood up, and I had two props with me. So everybody will have to use your imagination. I stood up and I said, hey, my name is Steve with Burnett Painting, home of the 9-year material and labor warranty. Now, have you heard about the new swimsuit body paint by Benjamin Moore? And then I called out in the audience. I said, Rory, now I know what you're thinking. What does swimsuit body paint and house painting have in common? Well, I'm glad you asked. If you're all about sporting that thong, and then I would pull up an artist brush. I said, or if you're wide bodied, and then I had an 18-inch, you're in Florida, so you know what an 18-inch nap, what the big fabs, what are those fab naps? Inch and a half ratted out nap. I mean, just the monster roller, right? That we use for exterior stuccos out here. And I pulled it up. I said, or if you're wide bodied, we've got your back. And so everybody went nuts, right? Because it was just after, after 90, they all went nuts. And in fact, it was the it was the larger women who came up to
Yeah.
me afterwards. I thought they were going to punch me, smack me, curse me out. They were the ones who were laughing the
Love
loudest.
it.
They said that was the funniest thing we've ever seen,
Oh my gosh.
And so, so I said, okay, you know, and then that encouraged me to do another
Yeah.
one. And so I just kept doing them. One time I sang Sinatra, Fly Me to Networking at Noon, or, and I pulled out a color blue, and I forget how they're on
Yeah.
YouTube. A lot of these are on YouTube. I did magic tricks. I sang, remember Sir Mix-a-Lot's Baby Got Back?
Yeah.
Well, this one was I like referrals and I cannot lie. You realtors can't deny when a hot lead walks in, no time to waste with this Rolex in your face. You get dumb. You want to pull up tough because you notice that wallet was stuffed deep in the jeans he's wearing. I'm hooked and I can't stop staring. Tanner tried to warn me too many referrals may make me rap corny, but yo, that's just my story.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love
So I
that.
had the sunglasses and the hat.
Yeah. But it's almost like they started probably looking forward to it, man. Every time you did one of these, right?
So warning, there comes the pressure, right? Every
Right.
you walk in, they're like,
Yeah,
"What are
you
you
gotta
gonna do?
gotta
What are you
outdo it.
gonna do?" Yeah. I'm like, "Oh no!" So, and I would brainstorm a lot of these with
Yeah.
my family at the dinner table. I'd have an idea, or with my mastermind group,
Yeah.
the Monday 20. I'd brainstorm them with them, and like you'd be surprised how fast you can pull it right together. Um, and then the one that tipped was Hulk Hogan. So I think you'd have to see it. You just search Burnett painting Hulk Hogan, Steve Burnett on YouTube, and you'll
I'm
see it
gonna have
on
to
the
check
Burnett
that out.
painting YouTube channel. And I came in we were at a restaurant called Sharky's Pier. It's right on the beach. I come in with a great big black overcoat that I still had from
Yeah.
Michigan from the cold days. I had to dust it off, and I had a bandana on too, and I think I had that covered up. And so I'm sitting there in the middle of the crowd, and everybody around me like, "What are you doing today? What are you doing today?" I said, "Just wait, you'll see." And I had my friend Andy, who is actually English. I had him play the role of Mean Gene, and I wrote his script out for him. I had it on the desk, and I jumped out, and I just did a whole Hulk Hogan script with Andy. If you just think of a Mean Gene, he's English, he's proper, he's the total
Yeah.
opposite of like
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan, And I'm walking on. Let me tell you something, Mean Gene.
Oh, man.
He said, "What do you come down here to Florida for?" Say, Bell's is having a sale on tights. Well, that's tight. I said, "Well," he says that and sale on tights. Well, let me tell you something else, Mean Gene. And that's Burnett Painting's 9-year material labor warranty. And let me spell it out so it's real simple, Mean Gene. That's PAINN whatever. In costume, just
Yeah.
full like
Yeah.
and
You got pretty good Hulk voice, I'm not gonna lie.
Thank you. And somebody even shared it to his page, and he
That's too
lives.
funny.
He's just up in St. Pete. He's not far from us, so
Yeah.
far from you. Even I don't know if you ever seen
Yeah,
him
about
rolling
an hour.
around on his
Who is it?
moped. Hulk Hogan. He's up in St.
Oh,
Pete.
is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
no way.
yeah.
So they
Go out
shared it
there.
to his page? That's too funny.
Yeah, you'll see him rolling around on his moped. Just say, "What's
That's
up,
funny.
brother?" Okay. So, and then so that was one tip that kind of got around, and
Yeah.
Ben Moore Corporate reached out to me, and then PDCA at the time, Richard Green was the CEO, and he reached out and he says, "Hey, somebody just forwarded this to me. It just got to my desk. This is hilarious. Tell me more about what you guys are doing." And because he started to hear some things, and then they asked me to come out and speak. So I said, "Okay, sure." I'll do it. Scared to death. Okay, so here's one of the principles we operate, and I don't have the visual here, but there's like your comfort zone and then the magic zone. Okay,
I like
and
that.
so this was definitely my magic zone. Scared to death. I agreed. I said, "Okay, I'll come
Yeah.
out." I got to Reno. This was 2014, and I get there, and they're like, "Well, we got your room taken care of. It's the presidential suite." I'm like, "Gosh,
Nice.
that's generous." They're like, "Well, we do that for all our keynotes." I said, "Excuse me, a keynote?" I'm thinking a little breakout, just me and like 12 guys, and I kind of share some stuff. But yeah, so I said, "Well, I'm not on for like 3 days, right?" And he says, "Yeah." I says, "Okay, I'm gonna be up there hiding in that room, you know, because yeah, I
Yeah.
don't like the limelight. I don't want it. I'm not a natural showman. It's just not me. I'd rather prop everybody else up and help them." And so I did. I went down Thursday and I shared. Josh Abramson was down there, and we both shared a lot of the unique strategies we were doing. And afterwards, a bunch of people came up and said, "Hey, you can coach, do you consult?" Because everybody asked, like, "How'd you start this business?" I said, "Well, the market started it. I had no intention of starting this." And so I started helping guys. This is February 14. And then that's when I wanted to get the process out of my head, because I'm a process guy, but I wanted to get it out of my head. And that's why I wrote my book, was to get
Mhm.
it out of my head. And then also to try to help, because I'm only one person. I'm like, how can I share this and help more guys?
Sure.
So I get the process out of my head, wrote the book. That was published October of 14. It took me 6 months of early morning jam sessions.
Yeah.
And it's where you
Jam
wake up.
sessions. Yeah.
Remember those.
I
So
do.
60, 90 seconds in the morning, zero distractions, just focused on your one thing. And 6 months later, I had a book written and published. And then when my book was published, that's when the phone really started to blow up. April said, listen, you go help these guys. I'll run the painting company. And so we did that for 2 months. And we realized that I was flying around and she's running the painting company, and we didn't really see each other. And we had built the painting company
Oh, you
together.
were flying around while you were doing all this.
Oh
Wow.
yeah, I was going around giving presentations to all the, at the time it was
So I take it
PDCA chapters,
the
and
keynote went well then, huh?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Scared to death, scared to death.
Yeah.
Like my leg was going, brrr. So yeah, and then flying around, giving presentations, speaking all across the United States. And then April said, I miss you. I said, hey, I miss you too. And business is fun and helping everybody else is fun, but marriage is priority for us. And so I said, you know what? Let's do this. I said, let's sell the painting company, or let's get the word out that we're, put it up for sale. And why don't you come help me help these guys?
All in,
And
man. Wow.
yeah, so we did. So that was the second time I burned the ships. One was leaving Michigan. Second
Yeah.
one was selling Burnett painting.
Did
And
you think you were ready to sell, or you were just this was a matter of like choosing marriage over your business?
yeah, good question, Tanner. So it had nothing to do with marriage. It wasn't like the marriage was on the rocks. We just missed working together. And so what what was up for discussion was, one is we're going to work together regardless. That's
Yeah.
priority number one. But two is which way. And we just thought, well, painting's great, but helping painters to build a successful company, that's for us, that's a higher value
Yeah.
and a little bit more rewarding to help others to be able to make a bunch of money, because then with that they can better their lives and they can help serve their community. Because our mission is to build profitable businesses so they can have financial freedom, time for their families, and make an impact in their community. And so our marriage wasn't an issue. We just missed working together. Been
Sure.
2 months without each other. And so, yeah, thank you. Good question. So
Yeah.
we put it.
Hotels
Mhm.
get old.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They do. They do. That was one. Another reason why I had retired from speaking. Not that I won't ever get back out there, but didn't need to after
Yeah.
after a year or two after we launched.
So then you
Thankfully.
took most of it online at that point, right? So that's kind
Hmm.
of where the transition happened.
Yep. And so we got the word out that Burnett painting was for sale, and a couple out of Boston said, "Hey." They were one of the ones who were interested, and so we selected them, and they moved down here, and they're still rolling around
Well,
today.
how does that work though? Before we get any further,
Hmm.
and don't stop your story because I want to
Hmm.
hear more of it. But like when you sell a business in the painting space, you don't hear it happen often. But what you've done
Hmm.
is, and I've paid attention to this as much as I could from the outside in, is that you've created a really what looked to be a scalable brand. 1-800, painting. It's on there. I mean, you created like a tangible asset that could be transferred to another person, and
Hmm.
many people who think, well, if I were to sell my painting business, what would I actually be selling? A phone number,
Hmm.
So it's really interesting, man. Could you just get a little bit into that? Because that was something
Sure.
that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. And that's a great question, Tanner. Thank you. In fact, I have two clients right now who mitigated in the middle of an acquisition. So one of
Wow.
them selling their company to another. And so, how do you do that? How do you position? How do you set your company up for a sale? For an exit or succession plan. And so I would say a couple key elements. One is to have a strong brand. You need a very strong brand with remarkable, with the network effect. Pardon me, network effect meaning you've got referrals, passing referrals, so that you don't have to rely on a specific ad channels because they come and go. And this is no knock to anybody, but if you can crush what would be step 5 in the DYB system, and that's networking. We call it ABCs of sales, and it's a rebrand of the Glenn Ross show. It says always be closing. We say, well, always be connecting. It's all
Yeah.
about relationships. We do a great job connecting, making relationships through Rotary, Chamber, BNI,
Yeah.
everywhere else, and then stand up and be remarkable. The other component is to exceed expectations with your customers. It's not good enough just to do a good job, but exceed their expectations. And you do that. And then step 9, stay top of mind, which
Mm.
most guys forget to do because we're so busy and we're trained to go out and get new leads. You do that, network effect will kick in. Once the network effect kicks in, you'll have more leads, referrals. You'll have more referrals than you have time to get after. So it'll just be about staffing up and salesmen to capture them. So that's one component. The other one, and this one is critical, because without this one, you don't have a business. It doesn't matter how much business you're doing, you're only self-employed if you do not have your procedures documented.
Mm.
We had all of our procedures documented. In fact, that was how we created the cafe, the online courses that we have. All
Yep.
the strategies are in there because we documented those. So we had very strong brand, all our procedures documented. We had network effect, which made it a very attractive business to buy.
When people say document your procedures, the
Hmm.
majority of people think, well, my standard operating procedures of how I do production, right? Like how I paint a
Mm,
house from top to bottom. I know what you're diverting to, or at least you're emphasizing, is that you didn't just document your production procedures. You documented how
hmm.
it works at the Rotary, how it works, like every area that has helped you achieve this. The
Yeah.
cookies, where we get the cookies, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
So
that
that
just
great point, Tanner. Thank you. I forget about that because
yeah.
a big component, a great big focus for DYB, something that's unique, is that I've worked really hard to make sure that everything we talk about is working on the business. Okay. In the business is important, where the SOPs are. But on the business is where you build the business. This is where anytime you write a procedure for where do we get the cookies, the delicious, the gourmet cookies, or how do we schedule a lead? Okay, that's on the. So when you write a procedure for how do we schedule an estimate, that's working on the business. And each time you make a new procedure, even each time you create a new procedure, you're working on the business. And once you get enough of them laid out, now you have a business that can operate without you. Yes, it's important in ops that you have your SOPs, but I would recommend that you get your business procedures together as soon as possible before you crest the million mark. That way, you can start replacing yourself at every level.
Hmm. And when you get to that point where you replace yourself,
Hmm.
in terms of, did that happen to you, or did you just go from operating owner to sale? Did you ever get to a point where you replaced yourself as the operating? Well, with April, and I'll just think of you
Hmm.
two as this, the same in that scenario. Did you ever have like a general manager, or did you just get to a point where it made sense to sell before that happened?
Yeah, good question. So here was something too. Like a lot of people say, "Well, how far did you get?" I'm like, "It ain't about how far we got. We were just like we hit this
Yeah,
hockey stick and we just hopped off the
yeah,
the rocket, if you will." But so we ran crews, and in our crews we called them helper, painter, crew lead. I never, so being from the greater Detroit area, Michigan, I never went with apprentice because that's a union term. I'm an open
sure,
shop guy. I'm a free
yeah,
capitalist, So I just,
yeah,
well, we're going to stick with helpers, or in
yeah,
fact, back in the day, we used to call them greenhorns.
yeah.
If anybody
Greenhorn,
knows what that is,
green
right?
tea.
Yeah, yeah, yep. So painters and crew leads,
Yep.
and then from crew lead, it went estimator. And so before we sold, I in fact had two estimators, Fabrice and Steven. They were awesome. They were great guys. And with the system, you don't need a project manager, because with the tech stack that we use and or let me just say, you don't need a project manager with the tech, especially tech that's available today, even like yours, especially. The estimator can manage the own projects, provided you have a strong culture. So important, strong culture.
That's what I wanted to get to.
Yeah. Peter Schmidt, a friend of mine, um, Eric down in Naples, invited me, says, I got somebody I want you to meet. And so I drove down to Naples early one morning, and I get there with Peter Schultz, excuse me. He was the former CEO of Porsche. And I'm sitting there listening to all of his
Nice.
stories for like 2 hours. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, this is cool. And I learned a tip from him too. He just said, he was invited to Harvard to give a speech. I'm like, whoa. And he went through and he gave his whole culture speech for 45 minutes. And at the end, he left some time for Q&A, thinking these guys are going to, they have questions about culture, because that's what he's talking about and that's what he's there. But he said, all right, let's open up for Q&A. And hands went up. And he said, well, he said, yeah, what do you think about the changing in the brake pads on the 2000, whatever, 911? Carrera, and he he said he didn't have a clue. He doesn't know anything about the technical
Wow.
issue of Porsche. She was there to change the culture, turn the culture around the company, you know. But here was the fun part. He says, you know what, you guys, there are a bunch of smart young men in here. I bet somebody here knows the answer. And then hands went up, and another guy answered that, and he said that's how he handled Q and A the whole the whole
Can't beat
time
it.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but after the meeting, after the breakfast, we stepped out of the restaurant, and he says, "Steven, you like sports cars?" I said, "Yes, sir." You know, and then he says, "What are you driving?" I said, that GMC pickup over there." You know, and we were standing right in front of his Porsche, and he says, "Remember this one thing: you are the curator of your culture."
Ooh,
Now, at the time, I didn't appreciate it, or excuse me, I didn't value it because I believed here was my mindset at the time is that I was just a painting contractor and we were just painters. We weren't some fancy pants corporation that had culture. And man, was I wrong? You know, I was dead wrong. He's absolutely right. Culture is everything.
that's your job as the leader is to be the catalyst for the culture. But I look at culture as essentially, kind of cut and dry. It's like, do people come to work with a sense of pride greater than the fact that they're just there to make some money? And I think
Hmm.
that, like, you have hit on that heavily, especially, from what I've learned from you and what I hear about you. Culture is huge. I think there's one thing that stood out to me that I learned from you, and it's just how you approach the team chat, or how you did at one point.
Hmm.
Like, what was it? Good morning, rock star. Like, I mean, just like little things like that. I mean, essentially, like, you just, like, like, averted to earlier about how you put people on a pedestal. I think that didn't change. You haven't changed. I think that that's something that you have done, and done well. And I think that maybe there's some business owners out there that try to take all the credit, and don't understand the aspects of understanding, how human motivation works, to the point where we want to give people the glory, we want to help them feel
Hmm.
fulfillment and grow within our organization. So what have you done in terms of culture, because the transition in terms of your coaching, do you create a certain culture within that's related to how you did it in the painting business? Because that doesn't go away. Like, you didn't just shut off the culture
Hmm.
switch, after getting some
Yeah.
great advice like that. How do you balance that in that
Mhm.
business setting? A little bit different.
Okay. Yeah, good question. Thank you. So it comes back to principles, really. And, you take principles with you wherever you go. The place, the environment, the business may change, but principles stay the same. These are laws, true laws that don't go away, depending on which laws that you use. So within DYB Coach, culture is number one. So, for example, we've, membership in there. And if anybody is critical, if anybody curses, I'll reach out. We'll delete it. I'll reach out to them, either I or somebody on the team, and we'll just ask them politely not to do it again. If they do, we'll have to cancel their membership. And we have. And it doesn't matter what level of membership they are, culture and community is number one to us. And
Yeah.
we've canceled some large companies. Unfortunately, we have some detractors out there now because of that. But culture is number one for
Keep
us.
the
And
culture,
so,
yeah, that's the North
mhm,
Star. So in the painting business, you look at culture, and I think that me as a painting business owner, there's been times where I compromise culture for convenience. And, I don't know if you've ever been in that position, maybe early on. I don't know if you resonate with this, maybe not. For me,
well,
it's like,
how do you mean exactly?
well, what I mean by that is that sometimes, well, early on in my business, I had individuals that produced work in a very strong way.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
it was convenient to keep them around because, first of all, it's hard, the quote unquote hard finding good help, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
the
oh yeah.
fact that, their work is almost on autopilot, but the
Hmm.
downfall of that is their attitude is poor. They don't build up the teammates around them. They're essentially, cancerous, if I
Yeah,
could use a
hmm.
better
Yeah.
word right now,
No,
I
it's
would,
pretty
but I
pretty
can't,
accurate. Yeah.
so there's that balance of, how do I make the leap to put culture first when culture really doesn't generate a quick return? Normally
Hmm.
culture needs to be cultivated,
Yeah, yeah.
so did you ever have something like that? Any
Oh yeah,
stories about that? And,
oh
and
yeah,
how'd you balance
yeah.
that? 'Cause I think that's a
So
problem that a lot of us have.
I have at least 9 years of stories because that's how I did it back up in Michigan. I did it
Yeah,
all wrong. I didn't pre-qualify. I didn't know my three P's, my target market, and I hired. I hired for skill instead of character,
sure.
which is the opposite of our system now. Hire for character, and then skill or train up the skill. So to your point, it's not a quick turnaround. It's a longer play, but the rewards are remarkable.
Hmm.
when you go for the longer game, when you go for the culture. But we've had some just machines just go through and just knock out jobs. But the problem is they knock out your team along the way.
Yeah.
And so while it works for the quick buck, it's not sustainable for long-term success. And now you're trapped in the hamster wheel of just constantly finding these machines. And then even when you find more of them, you're like, all right, well, I'll just get a dozen of these machines. These guys just crushing it. Well, if you ever put them on a job together, they're going to crush each other and they'll both be gone. So culture is number one. It's a little bit longer play, but it's not that much longer. And moreover, life is much better when culture is strong and when you hire for character. Because when you hire for character, your team's looking out for each other. They're training each other. They're helping each other. In fact, I remember one time I stopped by the shop. I had to drop something off or pick it up, and I caught one of my leads in my shop, cleaning it, organizing it off the clock.
Mm.
Nobody knew he was there. He wasn't looking for credit. I just said, this is Fabrice. I'm like, hey man, what are you doing? I'll just clean up a little bit. My wife's out of town, and the shop's getting a little out of line. And I said, hey, man, I checked at the time it was timesheets. I'm like, you're not clocked in. What do you need to be clocked in? He goes, no. I guess I've got time. He says, I wanted to do this. I
Wow.
said, you sure? Like, yeah. I'm like, man, appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's just an example of when culture's strong. Not only does business work out, but they take care of you. They look after the company and the team. So it's a little bit of a longer play, but the rewards far outweigh the time.
How did you handle the transition of when, you've built relationships? Culture is really about relationships. You know that.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
I think what this really comes down to is somebody, they love you as a boss and a leader, and they're not working for the business. They're working for you.
Yeah.
And, that, and April, I'm sure that they
Mhm.
had an admiration for her. When you broke the news that you were selling the business, Steve, how did they react to that, man? Because
Yeah, that was hard. That was
okay, I
really
was
hard. Yeah, that was really hard,
what did
because
you do to
yeah.
overcome that one?
So that was very hard because we didn't plan on it. It wasn't part of the vision, and I was constantly casting vision for them all the way up to that point. Here's our
Yeah,
plans for
man.
Burnett Painting. We're here. We're going to move
Not only
there
the
and
plans for the
expand.
company, but for them individually.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so it was at a Christmas party at our home. In fact, we had everybody over, all their families, and the prospective buyers. We had them come down, and we had them work with the team for I think a month to make sure the team liked them, to make sure that they got along. We wanted to make sure that it was a win-win handoff, and they hit it off. So they did really well, and so I broke it to them at the Christmas party. One of the crew leaders kind of laughed. He's like, I knew it. I could tell. I'm like, how'd you know? Everybody else, there were a couple guys were disappointed, to be honest. It was, and then the others were okay. They were kind of confused or weren't really sure, but we let them know that we were still here for them. They weren't completely on their own if they ever had any questions. And we're still, we worked with the new owners for, I forget, maybe, and it was a couple weeks directly one-to-one, and then April coached them for 6 months afterwards just to make sure it was a warm handoff. I'm still friends with the leads today. In fact, most of them have gone on their own and have launched their own
Oh,
companies yet today. And so they reach out to me, and I'm helping them. Many of them are members in the DYB community as well.
too cool, man. How so you've built the culture, you've created the culture, you passed off the culture. I
Mhm.
mean, that to me, like that's what it, I mean, you went through it, you did it. In terms of how they're doing now, how's the company doing now? Did they keep the same culture? Is the company
Mhm.
still successful? Was it obviously a good investment for the buyers?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so yes, and now they have a different leadership style. So it is different. They have a new team. I don't know the team, but I do see them buzzing around, and we chat once in a while. In fact, I just saw in my neighborhood. I took a picture and posted it, and they had a new car, a new sales car.
Nice.
Yeah, it looked sharp. I'm like, hey,
That's got to be neat. The
it is
business you
cool.
created,
Yeah,
so I can buy a
yeah,
vehicle with your name on it still.
yeah.
I
It's
love
kind
that
of
you kept the name. you know?
Thank you. Oh, yeah, yeah, indeed. So it's fun. I'll pull up next to one of them at a stoplight, and I just look over and kind of wave and smile. And it's one of their leads driving or whoever, and they just
Yeah.
kind of look at me like, "Who's this weirdo?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Hi."
Oh, that is a funny scenario.
Yeah, I don't,
I got
it's fine. I
I got
understand.
I got a question, not to divert too far, but when it comes to subcontractors, I'm on the employee side, man. Because when you experience that culture, these people become your friends,
Yeah,
almost as close to family. You build relationships with them, you know their whole life story, you know what they've been through, you want to help them win. And that's like a huge part of my drive as a business owner. I'm sure it
oh
was
yeah,
for you guys as
oh
well.
yeah.
I mean, at some point I mean,
It's fun.
the
It's
money's going to
fun.
come in and it's fun, right? So
Mhm.
what are your thoughts on the subcontractor model?
Yeah, great question. So we have many who do both in DYB. Uh, Personally, like you just said, I prefer employees. I prefer the tighter relationships. It comes back to values. And now this is the way I see it. I'm not stating that those who run subs. I've awesome clients who run subs, and they do a great job, and they love their subs. For me, my perspective is I value relationships over transactions. Now, there's nothing wrong with making a bunch of money. I really like to make a lot of money, but moreover, I really like to help others make a lot of money, but I value relationships first. And so, with that, you get tighter relationships with employees. So, that's been my experience anyway. Um, but others run subs and they do a great job with it. There's one company in the Northeast, he does both. He has 5, 6 exterior sub crews, and then he's got another 5 interior employee crews.
Nice.
And so he's able to run that mix. We would sometimes use subs to fill some gaps when we just couldn't staff up and, we were booked out. Or once in a while, we'd take on a job that was outside of our target market for a client or a friend. And if we couldn't staff it with the team, we'd hire subs. So we've used them. I just prefer employees. I prefer, I put
Yeah.
relationships first.
I think I think there's a way you can create culture with subs. If you build long lasting relationships, it's a survival technique for most up north.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
interesting.
Mhm.
Kind of on the personal development side, I definitely want to extract some of that out of you. I mean, you
Okay.
do a lot in terms of personal development. I think even as a coach of hundreds, I mean, not only
Yeah.
that, just you've been doing it for a while. You talked to us a little bit about books. You got books behind you. One thing I remember is
Hmm.
just how devoted you are to reading.
Yeah.
What are some books that you suggest? I won't ask you your favorite because that's not a fair question. But what are some books you
Thank you.
suggest for let's just say general business, but more so mindset shift, for those wanting to oh, he's gonna reach.
Here it is. This is the ultimate book on mindset.
Mindset.
It's Mindset by Carol Dweck.
So Carol DWECK, it's called Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. So
Yep.
what has that book done for you?
Well, so it helps me to help others understand that you either have a growth mindset or you don't. And I used to not have a growth mindset, but now I understand that if there's opportunity everywhere. No matter what the economy, there's opportunity everywhere. Like quick caveat on the hiring situation right now, uh, you'll hear most people say, "Oh, I can't hire it," or "It's too difficult." Well, when we built Burnett Painting, we built it in the Great Recession. Through the Great Recession, when everybody said there was no work out there, the sky was falling, I wouldn't listen to them. I had to put blinders on
Huh.
and go out there and hustle after the market share that they let go because they believe there's nothing out there. Well, it's the same thing with hiring. There are guys out there hiring, a lot of painters out there, because they put the blinders on, they have the growth mindset, and they're problem solvers. So
Obviously, the
mindset.
way that the market looks now, this could potentially be a new reality coming soon. I feel like what you
Okay.
just said could be some valuable information. There's people
All
that'll
right.
cower to the news and hear all this stuff, but there's always going to be a void that opens,
Mhm.
and you took advantage of it at a crucial time, so it works, and I'm sure you're
Yeah.
going to be coaching your members
Yeah.
to take that advice, I'm sure.
So here's a quick thank you. A quick point to that absolutely is others are looking for social proof to whatever everybody's saying. For example, back during the Great Recession, we were sitting in an RFP class because we were all told that if we didn't go get certified, we were going to prison forever. So they scared us into this class. And we're in a big hotel room. There are about 50, 60 of us contractors in there from Southwest Florida. And I'm looking around going, because I didn't have the option to believe that there was no hope out there. Those two little kids, and everybody's talking about how bad it is. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to prove that there is market share out there. At the time, I might have had 4 or 6 painters. And I looked to one guy on my left, really nice guy. I forget his first name. I remember the name of his company. And I said, hey, so bad out there, huh? And he goes, yeah. And I said, how many painters are you down to? He goes, oh, Steve, he says, we're down to 80. 80? 80?
Down to
There was
80.
one guy. There were
Yeah.
50, 60 other contractors
Yeah.
there, right? And I'm going, oh my goodness, I can't wait to get out of here. I'm getting this market share. You guys keep talking about how bad it is out there. And I did. I just kept hustling after that market share. So that's the mindset in recession or correction that might be coming. But
Yeah.
in regards to hiring, the mindset is everybody else believes you can't hire, so they're not trying that hard. Your opportunity, for those watching, your opportunity is to have the right mindset and get after it.
Yeah.
So.
Love that. Before we debrief here, and first, thanks for all the wisdom and information you're sharing with the podcast listeners, people in the group. Tell us a little bit about the DYB system, man. I think it's a huge benefit. I wouldn't have had you on here if I didn't think so. What you do is great, and it's honestly different than what you'll find out there. So I'd like if you can give me a little synopsis on what that is and why someone should click that link in the comments to be a part of it.
Okay, thank you. So what we did is we took everything we did to build a very profitable business. We were clearing well over 300,000 net profit and personal income. We can talk about sales, but I believe sales are for show, profit is for dough. So I like to talk about what really matters. And we documented all those processes, procedures, and we put them in an online course that's affordable for everybody and anybody who's willing to put in the effort. And it's $49 a month. You can have access to all of those. You get access to the DYB community once you're in, and you get to experience the community. If you want more, there's group coaching, and then once you're in group coaching, we call them mastermind groups, modeled after the Monday 20, which is my original mastermind group that I used to build Burnett painting. And then after that, there's one-to-one coaching. And we've got retreats, events, and on-sites and whatnot. But initially, the first step for everybody we recommend are to get in the community and check out all the courses. Our warranty, guarantee has always been, if it's not awesome, we'll give your money back. It's no problem.
Yeah. When it comes to the benefits, I think that the masterminds have such a huge benefit. My good friend Skylar's in one. Seth,
Yep, Skylar and Seth, they're both in OMG. We call it the original mastermind group. It was the first one we started. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're one of the first. Cool.
Well, they're in the first one. They weren't one of the first members, but they're in the first group that we ever launched.
So many people that I connect with. I mean, it's just in terms of being around other people, it's kind of like the benefit of being in the group. You hear other people's stories, but on a very, very, I would say granular level.
You go deep. You can share everything. Yeah. Financials to personal problems to
there's really no competition, right? This, some people might say, well, I don't want to share my secrets. Well, you got to be open. You got to listen to what people are doing, and people more often than not will probably be willing to share.
Yep.
So Steve, listen, man, it's been an absolute pleasure. What you're doing for the community is great. I felt called to get your name out there. I just, I think what you offer is great. I did have the pleasure of being a part of what you offer. I learned a ton. I think I made so many great hires because of you. And the culture, I don't quite do the cookies. I tried, but my wife wanted to bake them and it got a little too overwhelming. But I do believe in what you do, and what you teach and the culture that you provide. Now, before we go, there's always been this little itch that I've had, and not with you personally, but again, just kind of like how growing a business essentially, without buying leads is one of your strongholds. When you're first starting out, I think like it's kind of tempting, right? It's like, you have marketers coming at you from every angle, and things have changed since 10 years ago when there wasn't really these options. Do you still hold firm in, especially like a startup, to be able to implement some of the things that you teach to get the ball rolling quickly? Maybe we, like, again, like door knocking, like, is that still, your North Star in terms of how to get it done early on?
Okay, so great question. Thank you. Door knocking, don't recommend it. This is before I understood how to network properly.
Yeah, cool.
And those who do consider networking, make sure you buy Bob Berg's book, Endless Referrals, right here. And you only have to read the first 7 chapters.
Book, isn't it?
No. So it's let me move this thing where I can see. Endless Referrals by Bob Berg.
Okay.
And this flipped networking for me. I used to hate networking, but once I read just the first 7 chapters here, then I understood and made it work. So you don't have to go door knocking door to door. Just read the first 7 chapters of Endless Referrals. And I would say unequivocally, absolutely don't pay for leads, because what happens is you're attracting the wrong market who are looking for deals and discounts. If you don't serve them, show up, they leave you a nasty review, and that just compounds. Instead, network so that you can get to the good leads, the A's and B's, and not necessarily the C's. And you will build a very successful business and do much better instead of getting trapped in those lead sources, which I sincerely believe are a racket. Why are they a racket? Well, they reach out to you and they promise to sell you leads. And those who sign up for the leads are effectively funding the racket's SEO. And when they fund the racket's SEO, what happens to your URL?
Drops.
Right? Yeah. Because you're funding their SEO.
Oh, it's a machine. You can't even get up there on the. It's way harder. I mean, they have flooded it. Thumbtack, Angie, SEO isn't as easy as it used to be.
Yep. So moreover, not only do you fund theirs, but then you get trapped in all these leads that are coming in, and then they take up all your time. They take up all your time because you're driving all over God's green earth trying to get to all these estimates, so they don't leave you a nasty review on whichever racket that they're on, which creates more stress. So no, this system is far less stress.
And
a lot more money.
A lot more money, and you get a lot more yeses, I'm sure, because people already feel like they know you before you get to the door.
Yeah. So if I comment real quick, we once you hit network effect, where referrals are referring referrals, customers are referring referrals, and you're doing everything you can just to keep up. We were at my before we sold, I was at an 84.5% close ratio, and we were 20% above market rate.
It's amazing. I mean, it's because they knew who you were, they knew what you did. It was just a matter of you showing up.
The network effect, through networking and
really cool. And you're a very big fan of BNI, I know.
I am Rotary. I prefer Rotary. BNI is the quick hit. That's the quick hit. If somebody's looking for some quick hits, quick leads, I tell them BNI. There are good and bad groups, but my favorite of all of them are Rotary. Rotary number one.
Explain the difference, because I'm not a part of a Rotary.
Okay, absolutely. So Rotary is a service organization, and people come together not to trade leads, but to serve the community. And so they put on charity events, live speakers come in, they have lunches, you meet weekly for lunch. And what happens is that you end up meeting with all of the most successful people in your community who have a heart for caring for others. So talk about culture. Culture is very strong in Rotary. And once they get to know you and like you, you're in. It's a no comp market for you. And it's huge. Now I learned this one from the other book that Bob Berg told me to read, Thou Shalt Prosper.
Like that.
Yes. So that was in here. And one last book, this is the first book that Bob Berg told me to read, who's Bob's my mentor, and that's Robert Cialdini's Influence. This is the number one on sales and marketing book that I've ever read.
Influence. I'm just want to read it out. Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. Robert B. Cialdini. Cialdini. Okay, looks like a good one.
Yeah. It's my experience. In my opinion, it is the best sales and marketing book for the psychology of persuasion that I've ever read. And once members and clients read it, they look at the DYB system again. I've got it on the wall here, and they go, "Oh, that's why this, and that's why that." I'm like, "That's it. Those are my, that's where it all came together." So, absolutely
love it, man. Steve, you're a wealth of wisdom and knowledge, man. Thank you for putting yourself out on here for us to listen. I did drop a link in the comments. Steve created a generous offer through the link that I put down. You can join DYB for $1. So, I guess he dropped down the, there's really no barrier to entry.
It's just for Tanner. Yeah. So it's not out there. It's not anywhere else.
No. So. Yeah. So so it's in the comments. Just click the button, literally click it. You're going to have access to the DYB Cafe which you'll get instant results from. There's modules that you can learn from about the way that Steve ran and operate his business. I'm sure it's changing over time. I'm sure you're constantly changing it. And then I guess the coolest part is being part of the community. As being a part of a $120,000 member painting contractor group, you kind of get lost in the sauce a little bit. It's there's a lot there, but being in a dialed in community with like-minded individuals, it's invaluable. Steve, thank you. And this again, Steve mentioned this was the first podcast he's been invited on, which is crazy to me. So if you're a podcast host,
well, first one I've come on, I've agreed to. Yeah.
Oh, agreed to. All right. Even better. So thank you so much.
Well, you're doing a great job, Tanner. I appreciate your leadership, and it's just amazing what you're doing. It's fun watching you take
Thank
off.
you,
So
man.
well done.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything, and hopefully we'll connect again sometime soon.
Sounds good. My
All right, man.
pleasure. Bye now.
Hey, thanks so much for checking out the Contractor Secrets podcast. Stick around. I am going to drop in a short testimonial that one of our awesome heavy hitters in Dripjobs had agreed to give out for us. So if you want to hear a little bit about how Dripjobs is helping contractors, stick around for the end of this episode and you can listen in. Real quick. What's going on, everyone? I'm here with Randy Smith, DuraPro. You may have heard of him if you listen to podcasts. He is someone that did a business breakthrough with me and is also a Dripjobs user. I'm just going to start off, man. You know, you're doing this for me and Dripjobs, of course. I just want to know raw thoughts about what the software's done for you. Are you a fan? Do you hate it? What do you, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, I absolutely love it. Definitely what I was looking for in a software and a CRM. Like before Dripjobs, I couldn't even tell you how many different like softwares I was trying to use and manage to accomplish the same thing. And it was just a headache. And then now just having the all-in-one is a big thing. And then from there, my favorite thing is really, I feel like it's just taking my sales process, to the next level. And as far as, communication, the biggest thing is like the speed of communication. Customers love, nowadays with Amazon and everything, like everyone wants things now.
They're used to it.
Yeah. So like, for example, yesterday I had, someone see my Facebook ad, they filled out the request and it was at like 4:30 p.m. and I was leaving the job site and they said today worked. So it was like scheduled for 6 p.m. Drove over there and showed up. So it's
that
like
quick. Yeah.
Within an hour, they've got an estimate in their hand on the spot.
That's powerful.
So yeah, it's definitely taken the sales process to the next level, which is big. And I love the customer portal. Like it's just super professional and, you can throw all the details in there. It looks really nice. Being able to present it on the iPad.
Are you selling on the spot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, man. I love selling on the spot. I think it just
you're getting people to squiggle on the with their finger on the iPad.
Yeah, I think it just makes your close rate go up, having just Dripjobs alone with the ease, like how easy it is for them to sign with you, right? You've got iPad out, they can see everything. They can put their credit card info, which is big. So that's probably my favorite part is just, it gives me that confidence that I feel like we're the most professional company compared to the competitors, and you can kind of sell your jobs for more. You go into estimates, with a different mindset, like knowing that, hey, we're going to be the best company or option for our target market. And you just have that confidence. And so that's been one of my favorite parts of it. Then on the other end too, just I love how I'm building up a pipeline and I'm not missing any leads. So obviously, like we're all busy with contractors, phones blowing up. Sometimes it's tough to not miss leads, but with this, everything goes right into Dripjobs, into those cold leads. I don't have to worry about missing them, and they're getting those follow-ups. And it kind of is helping me prepare for, the downturn, because right now it's like, oh, everything's booming, phones are ringing, but I know that doesn't always last forever. So being able to prepare, have that pipeline of leads building up, so when you are slow,
you can reference it.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you used the blast feature yet?
I have not yet, but
it's a good feature, dude. Every time I hit that blast feature, I get something, and for those that are listening or watching that don't know what that is, what he's referring to in terms of the pipeline is like you have a pipeline of every person that you've given a proposal to, or every new lead that has come through that maybe hasn't converted to an estimate. And all you got to do is hit one button and you can send out a message to just those people. So you can imagine if you have 100 people that you've given proposals to that haven't told you yes or no, or haven't opted out of communication, right? You can just blast them a message saying, hey, just reaching out today, we can give you $250 off your proposal. And every time I've done that, I've gotten at least 2 or 3 jobs. So I use it sparingly, of course, when you need it, but it's just good to be able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
exactly. I haven't
awesome,
tried
man.
that, but I'll have to
That's
definitely
huge. I
try.
love what you said, man, because there's an interesting thing about what you said in terms of well, number one, selling on the spot, right? Creating an experience. But you know, dude, when I made this, it was out of frustration, right? Great things come out of frustration because I know like you got to have the full circle from the initial intake to the final goodbye. So, in terms of what your customers like, how are they responding to the drips? Because some people tell me, well, I don't want to follow up too much. Like, I think it's annoying or, you know, automated. People think it's a robot. Like, what is some of the feedback you've been getting in terms of like the responses people have when they get a drip email and it's like 2 weeks later or whatever?
Yeah, I've gotten only good feedback from it, really. I mean, I'm sure it's annoyed a few people that, ended up not being our customer
Right.
anyways. So it's like, hey, you're never gonna make everyone happy.
Right.
But overall, I think people appreciate the communication, like in the trades in general have gotten a rap for, not answering the phone, not getting back to people. So I think being able to showcase, hey, we've got a system in place where, we're organized, we're on top of it, and we're communicating with you, from the second you reach out to us all the way to wrapping up the job. So I've gotten good feedback from it for sure.
Love it. That's huge, man. That's huge. So last question, bro. And again, thank you so much for your time. If you could let someone know who's on the fence, you know, and usually everyone's on the fence when it comes to new software because everyone promises that it's going to solve their problem. You know, can you give them a piece of advice?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. Like has shaved hours of workload off my week. I guarantee that it's made me close way more jobs.
Yeah.
I feel way more organized, more professional.
Yeah.
It's just, especially at the price point, it's like, I
Yeah.
mean, I would spend $1,000 a month on it. It's like,
Watch it. I'm kidding.
yeah, I know.
No, I
I'll
appreciate
say
the
that's
honesty.
great, but no, I just have a lot of
Yeah.
good things to say
Thank you, man.
about it. And,
Yeah. And for you to take
now,
time out of your day, bro, it means the world. You know, yeah, you get a little gift bag, but it's like, dude, your time's valuable. It shows that you really care. Shows that we've done a good job as a company, giving you something that you rely on, where you cannot think about what's going on in your business. You trust us, and we take that so seriously, man. So thank you, bro. You're killing it. Me and you just discussed a business breakthrough. So if you guys want to go back and listen to Randy, what was it like 5, 6 months ago? It was quite a while, right?
yeah, it had to
Yeah.
be. Yep.
Yeah. How's business going? Good?
Yeah, it's going great for
Sounds
sure.
good. Sounds good, man. Well, I look forward to chatting with you, brother. Thank you for your time. Get back to doing what you do best, and we'll see you soon.
All right, sounds good.